So for the 21 years, one employee contracted as a security guard and like so many others got no paid vacation leave, no sick leave with pay. Wow. This morning we discussed the recent controversy surrounding the security guards and their statutory benefits. With us this morning, Attorney at Law Leonard Green. Mr. Green, morning, sir. Welcome to Smile. How are you?
Morning, gentlemen. Happy to be here.
Yeah. That happened because they were not salaried workers. They were...
They did in fact receive a salary, but they had signed an agreement with the company saying that they were contract workers and they were not employees. Now, I'll give you a simple example. When you call a plumber to come to your house and he does a plumbing job, he's contracted to do that job. And when he leaves, you're done with him. Contract concluded after you pay him. Mm-hmm. And that is what they are contending these security guards were. But unlike the plumber who came to your house, they were really full-time employees who were required to sign a contract defining themselves as contract workers. The court ruled in September 22 that that contract, notwithstanding the signing of that contract, they were in fact employees. All along they were paying their statutories, meaning that all the deductions were taken from their salaries. And yet they were never given the benefits that the average worker is entitled to.
Let me jump in, Mr. Green.
Yes.
And the contract that they signed
yes.
said they should get those benefits. Did that contract say that?
No, the contract itself say that they are contract workers and essentially they are not entitled to.
Also, like they're kind of waiving their right to...
The effect of it, when they signed it, is that they would have waived their statutory rights that an employee would be entitled to.
So why is the company being blamed then? Because if I give you a contract and say, sir, you get paid $5 a day, and you sign it, and then put up your hand and say, but it's $20 work.
The court look at all the circumstances. And in certain circumstances, a worker, not necessarily versed in law, feel pressured to sign these documents in order to keep their jobs. And so the court says, when I take into consideration the fact that the company own the firearm, the company assign you every day, when I take the signing of the contract together with the circumstances generally, you are in fact an employee and not a contracted worker.
Yeah. So is it a case where then the contract that they signed originally was essentially misleading them or
not exactly misleading, but pressurizing them. You know, ordinary working people, you need a job. Yeah. It said, listen, if you don't sign this, you don't have a job. And for years, these security guards were left out in the cold with these contracts, which deprived them of basic rights. You know, maternity leave, sick leave, and the horror stories are numerous. People have been shot while working on the job and have permanent injuries, can't recover because you're a contract worker and not an employee. So the court says, no, you are employees and ought to be entitled to statutory benefits.
Did the court bear in mind also the hours that they're contracted to work? Because
those are factors that the court would have taken into account. Some of them work 12-hour days.
Right.
Right, 7 days a week, some of them, these are very vital people. It's 25,000 licensed security guards we have in Jamaica, and they are regulated under the Private Securities Authorities Act.
Let me play devil's advocate. How can the employer contest this? Because I can say, Garth, you came to work, I said, see a contract here,
yes.
You're only getting this, you said, no problem, I sign it. When I go to court...
They didn't say no problem, never. They said them sign it.
But I can say they said no problem.
Yeah, but by implication, you might want to argue that point. But the court has an overarching responsibility to ensure fairness to workers. You see, so you can't pressurize people to sign a contract.
Yeah, but you can't prove that I did pressure Garth.
Yeah, it's implied. The court can imply that the circumstances were such that you were pressurized.
So the employer now...
Yes. But they recognize, that the contract, they have accepted the ruling of the court on that point.
So
right?
the employer dead in the water? In this case?
In this case, the employer is dead in the water. It's really a contract, a document which was aimed to sort of put them in a more favorable position vis-a-vis their employees. And the court has a responsibility to balance this thing and to ensure that the rights of workers are protected. So too, the ministry has that obligation. And this is where we are now.
So the court is now saying, pay them money and all these
No,
things for
we're not
21
there
years.
yet.
Or, as the court saying, going forward from now,
Yes.
you are an employee, you're not a contract worker.
Essentially, the court is saying, I read the law to be saying that you were always contract workers, notwithstanding the terms of the contract.
You are always...
You're always employees.
Right.
I beg your pardon.
Right.
Thanks for the correction. But not just going forward, that was always the situation, but going forward, the employers have sought to invite them to sign a fresh contract and encouraging them to sign this. Without them signing it, they will be deemed to have left their jobs. We regard that as being very unfair because the terms of those new contracts that they are proposing saying that they want to proceed without blame. And the tenor of that contract is that they must give up the rights. Many of these people have been working for 15, 20 years without any rights. And they're saying, hold on a minute, we cannot sign this contract. And the question of without blame, oh no. Because many of them, the same horror stories you hear about pregnancy, the horror stories you hear about people being shot and being given medical attention, yet no compensation for the time that they have worked with the company. Those matters must be addressed going forward.
Let's take it a step back because you did mention the Private Securities
Regulation Authority.
Right. This is not a new situation. I'm pretty sure there would have been security guards who would have made some kind of complaint, at the very least, in years gone by. Why are we here now, and why has it taken so long to come to the fore and get to this point? Because it's a long-standing problem.
It is a long-standing problem. And as I said, these 25,000 security guards are actually at the very center of regulating so many organizations. Even in your very organization here today, I have to pass through a number of security guards. They are more than security guards because they have to be trained to understand the nature of the organizations all over Jamaica, in embassies, banks, wherever. I think they deserve a lot more respect in terms of how they are treated. And yes, it is a long-standing problem, and it's a long-standing problem which was never addressed under the Private Securities Regulation Authority, although that entity under the Ministry of Justice has the responsibility to regulate this situation. It has not done so. The Ministry of Labour has been silent on this matter for years. And I can't explain why. It is just a matter which has now come to the fore. It must be addressed and it must be dealt with.
I want to go back to what the court could say to the employer.
Yes.
For not doing what you are suggesting they should have been doing.
Yes.
What can happen? They have a back pay?
Those are matters which we will be going to court to seek orders and declarations as to how we proceed. But the idea of forcing workers to sign another unfavorable contract is something we regard as quite illegal, unfair, and unjust. Without even independent legal advice.
Yeah. Okay. Given your understanding of the situation, the history of the situation, and what you're seeing unfolding in the courts now,
yes,
how likely is it that the security guards will receive a favorable ruling in the court?
I think it's very likely that it will, because when you look at the document that they're trying to have these security officers sign, it is plainly unjust, plainly unfair. Imagine you are working with a company for 15, 20 years and they're asking you to sign a new contract which will put you on probation for 90 days. That don't sound like justice to me.
Because you've been there for
15, 20 years. That can't be justice. Why would you be signing a contract after you're working with an entity for 15, 20 years to start on probation for 90 days?
They gave a reason for that?
No, them just said that. If you don't sign this contract, you go home. And a number of the people feel pressurized to sign, and have signed. Some have done so.
We're talking about contracts being provided to security guards here. Are we talking about all security firms, or which security firms are we speaking? Well, not so much
I
to
won't
name
necessarily
them.
want to name them, but some of the big security companies. And some of these countries have grown immensely, international, have branches all over the world. And yet still we feel that the security guards have just not been treated fairly.
Yeah.
When will we hear what we...
Well, we are expected to have the first hearing of the fixed date claim form December 11th in the Supreme Court, where we'll be analyzing this particular contract and whether the conduct of the security guard companies named in the claim acted fairly. So sometime in December, we expect to have some hearing.
Asking for back monies too?
Well, whatever the law deems that they are entitled to, I think that's what they should get.
Okay.
It will require, I think, some negotiation. Who will be a part of it? Who will be deemed liable? Is it the security organization? Should the government play a part? I think the government should play a part in resolving these differences because they have slept over the years and allowed the sore to fester.
Thank you, Mr. Green. Thank you for coming, sir. Attorney at law, Mr. Leonard Green. All right, more and smile when we come back. Stay with us, please.